What's going on, Bucs fans? Welcome back to another edition of the Pirate Parlay podcast here on the Sick Podcast Network. I'm your host, JC On, and our last episode didn't age very well because lo and behold, Liam Coen is not coming back. He's actually in Jacksonville, in Duval County, himself right now, trying to take some other Bucs coaches with him. We'll get into that. We'll get into the whole shenanigans and drama that was the Liam Coen to Jacksonville. Short, quick. We're moving on, but we will touch on that because we haven't yet. We'll touch on some of the other news going around the Bucs here. We'll take a look back, final look back at this season, naming our team awards as well as grading each position, roster spot. Kind of positional group. We'll get into that. And maybe we'll touch on some other things. Senior Bowl's going on. There's a couple guys who are looking pretty good at practice right now. We'll get into all that and more right after the break.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Pirate Parlay.
Battle intercepted, picked off in the end zone. Bucs are going to beat the Chiefs. We're the champions of the world.
The sickest Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. It's going to be sick.
Back here on the other side. Welcome in. I appreciate everybody here. I see Nathan in the comments already. He's going to be on the Buccaneers cruise, which is super exciting. Some new people coming in, people dropping out. It looks like Cody Milk is going to be on there. It's going to be a great time. Operation Fill the Boat. Everybody else in the comments, appreciate you guys. Keep questions coming. Give me your thoughts in there. I'll definitely react to them as well. And obviously, as always, a big thank you to my people listening to this as a podcast afterwards. So appreciate you guys. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications. But let's go. Let's get it started. Let's talk about Liam Coen and what happened in really a 24-hour span. It was very quick. You had him agree to stay with the Buccaneers. He was going to come on as the highest paid coordinator in NFL history at a contract that was reported around $4.5 million. That was good to go. People were rejoicing. People were calling it a holiday. One of the best, even in 1 year, young minds in NFL, especially calling plays. And it wasn't just him calling plays. It was the innovation of his offense, the adaptability, the adjustments that he'd make, and not just game by game, but as the season wore on. Prime example is that run scheme. He wanted to come in as an inside-outside zone, mid-zone run scheme. Well, that doesn't work when, you've got guys who are better at running gap and duo and power and all these other run schemes that they have. And not to mention your guys are better blocking that. So he made an adjustment on the fly and still called those zone plays, but a lot more gap and a lot more of these other plays that really suited his blockers and his running backs better. Doing what he did, bringing the Chiefs to overtime without Mike Evans, without Jalen McMillan, without Chris Godwin. Crazy. Just his ability to elevate and game plan, and something that everyone was mad at. Byron scheme guys open, right? Even if he's covered, he's not, because of the scheme that you're putting. So there was a lot to like, a lot to love about Liam Coen. A lot of people wanted them to fire Todd Bowles to keep him. And a lot of people said, do whatever you have to do to keep him. The first route was to make him an offensive coordinator, highest paid offensive coordinator, give him a raise, maybe give him that coach in waiting title after Bowles stepped away, maybe give him an assistant head coach position so he could learn some more of the ropes and kind of have his feet in both areas. They did that, and everything looked like it was going to be good until it wasn't. The next day, waiting on Liam, or reports came that this was agreed upon before his first interview, or they were talking about it before his first interview came up. And then it was agreed upon a few days, and he said, give me some time to think about it. Wednesday came by. He was supposed to be in the facility. Thursday came by, supposed to be in the facility to sign the contract. And he dipped up to Jacksonville. They sent his plane down, picked him up. It was all hush-hush behind the back because the Jaguars are doing some shiesty stuff too with bringing in Patrick Graham as a head coach interview to fulfill the minority Rooney rule that they have in place, which is stupid. But they used that ploy and said, hey, we don't want Patrick Graham to not come because, it's found out that you're coming, and then not be able to hire you right away. And before, the Bucs can get involved and try to change your mind and blah, blah, blah. So he snuck up there secretly. The Bucs trying to get in touch with him, blowing him up, and lo and behold, no one could get in touch with him because he was interviewing with Shad Khan in Jacksonville. He finally, once the story broke, I guess he reached out to Todd Bowles and said, hey, I'm interviewing. He reached out to Baker Mayfield and some of the offensive linemen that were in the Bahamas. And apparently they told him, go for it. You got to go for it. And again, no, I don't think anyone can fault him for making that decision to ultimately go for it and end up as Jacksonville's head coach. There's only 32 of these things. We've seen Bobby Slowick came out the next day as a prime example, as a guy who was hot last year's coaching circuit, declined interviews, stayed with Houston, hoping to, run it back and have some better success. And he got fired. But it also exposed him too. Once the league had tape on CJ Stroud, once the league had tape on the offense he was running, he failed to adjust a lot of the ways. So, but it's again, it's how you do it. It's optics. Supposedly that contract offer from the Bucs was contingent on him not taking a second interview. Again, Jaguars told him to keep it on the down low because they're doing some shiesty stuff with Patrick Graham to fulfill the Rooney Rule. End game. Moral of the story is Buccaneers are now on their fourth offensive coordinator in 3 years and their third offensive coordinator search in 3 years. So we'll get to some of the candidates, what that looks like, how many they've interviewed. I believe it's been 6 so far that we know of. 3 of them from one organization. Try to guess which one that is. We'll see how quickly they get this wrapped up. Some of these things have went for a while. This is a very attractive destination for offensive coordinators or people who want to call plays for the Bucs. They have a litany of talent, a top 5 offensive line. Even when you think about the hole at left guard with Bredesen entering free agency, playmakers at wide receiver. Even if you consider Godwin could end up somewhere else, I doubt he does, but he could. And then you also have a good backfield in Baker Mayfield. So there's a lot to like about this offense. For offensive coordinators, and we've seen that. I don't think they'll have any problem interviewing anyone who they want for this job, unlike past years when some people have declined. So stepping stone to head coaching positions last 2 seasons definitely helps, as well as the loaded offense. But it is what it is at the end of the day. Again, Jared saying could have just told the Bucs the truth like a man, like an adult. He could have. I think it's one of these things where there's just a lot of balls juggling in the air. And I know he's got regrets the way it all went down, personally. But it will be old news here soon. Bucs fans will hold on to it for a little while. But it will be old news here soon. And we'll be moving on. And that's what we're doing. Moving on into the off season, again, the OC search well underway. Before we get into some of those candidates, we did have something come up, and Jared Cox tried poaching. Yes, he did. Liam tried to poach Carberry. Their offensive line coach came in and just did a magnificent job with the offensive line, just absolutely wonderful. He tried to poach him over as a run game coordinator. An offensive line coach. The Bucs said, nah, that's not happening. It'll be interesting to see if he tries to poach anybody else. Josh Grizzard is a hot name as the team's passing game coordinator. I wrote about this and talked about this. Brian Picucci, their assistant offensive line coach, that could promote him to a full-time offensive line coach, and it wouldn't be considered. It'd be considered promotion there. So, they're not out of the woods yet. There are still some guys that Liam could try to come after, but I don't. Bucs are not going to let anybody make a lateral move. That's for sure. There's still some bad blood. Jason Light, I'm sure, still has some grudges, and Liam Coen talked to Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times, and it says, time heals, but not that quick. Not that quick. Nice try, Liam. But the Bucs are well underway, and looking to try to fulfill that spot, and also multiple other spots too. You look at the defensive side of the ball, contracts are up for both Casey Rogers and Larry Foote. They're co-defensive coordinators, inside linebacker, pass game coordinator, and defensive line run game coordinator. So Casey Rogers has already accepted a position with the Lions. Larry Foote had interviewed there for the defensive coordinator position. He didn't get it, but still not out of the realm of possibility that he goes there or somewhere else. He can still come back. There's an offer on the table for him to come back. We'll see about the rest of the coaches. George Edwards, edge rusher coach, Nick Rapone, the safeties coach, and Kevin Ross, the cornerbacks coach. Those are the three areas most fans wanted to see improvement. Like the defensive line, I think Casey Rogers has done a great job developing the defensive line. Logan Hall, 5.5 sacks. Kalijah Cansey led the team in sacks and missed the first 5 games of the season. Like Vita Vea has had his best season in he's a Pro Bowler and probably should have made the All Pro. Dexter Lawrence played like 10 games, and he was phenomenal. But I think Vita Vea made a really strong case. I think he led all defensive tackles in sacks, especially nose tackles for sure. And all that was development under. I think Greg Gaines took a big step. He looked really good this year. And even Will Golston when he had to jump in. CJ Brewer, we said his name a few times. So they've got a good group of guys on that defensive line, and credit to Casey Rogers for developing them because he's a big part of that. So that's going to be a big loss. And, you look at linebacker and Larry Foote, manned that position for a while between the Steelers and with the Lions and also with the Cardinals. And I think he got the most out of what he could. Levante was Levante. Athleticism's not there, and he's not a guy who can cover a whole swath of field by himself anymore. But the rest of the guys, he had to put some stuff together with some glue, toothpicks, and it looked like a science project. Not a great one, but it's still, at the end of the day, it got him to the playoffs and an NFC South championship for the fourth straight year. So we'll kind of see how that plays out as well on that side of the ball. Thad Lewis just took an interview with the Houston Texans for their offensive coordinator job. Reports are that he's turned down several other interviews already. No reporting of him interviewing with the Bucs for their OC position. He did interview with them last year for that OC position. So we'll see if that comes up. But they are keeping it in-house too. We'll see if they do interview Thad, but they've already kept it in-house with one. Again, Josh Grizzard, I mentioned that someone Liam Coen might come after. He's the passing game coordinator for the Buccaneers, young kid. Obviously, you can tell he did a tremendous job last year, especially, Godwin goes down, who's in the middle of a season where he's looking like he could be a Triple Crown winner with his role in this offense. And then Mike goes down, and again, then Jalen goes down for that Chiefs game, and you're down to bare bones, and you're getting these guys to produce. Ryan Miller, who's a former tight end, and the way you're structuring the passing concepts, and some of them were just so beautiful and just tricked. I mean, how many do we see Jalen McMillan wide open on? Like teams know they need to guard a 3rd-round draft pick and Jalen McMillan, but the concepts, and he's part of developing those concepts as a pass game coordinator. We're really, really spot on. And, I think he's one of the favorites. I think a lot of Bucs fans want him to be the guy, keep that continuity in the building. Again, a young guy that you can hopefully kind of mold and as they grow, maybe not a guy who's one and done, but again, it's a big responsibility. He'd be in charge of the offense and making it go. And everyone's going to be judged against Liam's numbers last year. If there's a drop off from the run game from 4 to 14, like that's not good. If you're a top 5 offense this year and you drop down to top 15, that's not good. So it's huge responsibility to remain in both of those balanced, but also both of those in that top 10 area, because if not, then you're looking at regression. And a majority of this offseason should be spent on getting the defensive side of the ball up to talent level, certainly depth level as well. But again, there's a lot of opportunity with that offensive coordinator, but a lot of pressure with that offensive coordinator job too, especially for candidates who have never called plays before. But the Bucs went back to back there. And I know Liam called him he called like 2 games when he was originally the offensive coordinator for the Rams, and obviously in college, but come on, college and NFL are 2 different things. Still experience, and some of these guys don't have it. Josh Grizzard is one that doesn't have it at the NFL level. The rest of the guys that they're interviewing don't have it, and that starts with a list of 3 Rams coordinators. Dave Ragone, the quarterbacks coach for the Rams, he was one of their virtual visits that they've had. Nick Caley, who is the Rams passing game coordinator, he's a hot name right now. The Jaguars have also interviewed him as well. Grant Udinsky, the assistant offensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. He's another one of these up-and-coming younger coaches. Hasn't, I'm sure he's had some dabbles here calling plays as the assistant OC, but a majority of that isn't running through him. Marcus Brady, the passing game coordinator for the Chargers, they interviewed him. He was one of the first to interview. And then Nate Shalassi, the passing game consultant for the Los Angeles Rams. And an interesting thing about Nate is that, he is the play writer for the Rams. And when you look to see who the last 4 play writers were for the Rams under McVay, and they are all offensive coordinators or head coaches in the league. Shane Waldron was the offensive coordinator in Seattle and also with the Bears before he got let go. Obviously, Pete Carroll was fired, so that whole staff was let go there. But then you move on to Zach Robinson, who's the offensive coordinator for the Falcons. Liam Coen, who's now the head coach for the Jaguars, OC for the Bucs last year, and Kevin O'Connell, I believe, was one of them as well. One of the playwrights, obviously Minnesota Vikings, and then I'm forgetting the name of the Cincinnati Bengals coach. I think is it Zach Taylor for the Cincinnati Bengals? Let's check our handy dandy Google. I'm pretty sure it's going to bother me. Yeah, Zach Taylor was another one of those guys who were the playwriters as well. So there's a lot of intrigue around him. He's very young, obviously, but could he be one of these next guys, one of these next up and coming guys? So interesting enough, none of these guys have play calling experience at the NFL level. None of them are former play callers, so no retreads. We'll see if they go that direction at all. All of these guys are pretty young. I think they're all under the age of 43. So they aren't old guys. They're fresh minds, and 3 of them have worked for one of the freshest minds in the NFL, and Sean McVay. We see what continues to come out of what he's doing. The other one is a guy who works with Kevin O'Connell, who worked with Sean McVay and is a similar system. And Josh Grizzard, he was with the Dolphins before, who worked with Mike McDaniel, who came from that Kyle Shanahan system, which is a derivative of the Mike Shanahan system, which Sean McVay's offense is a derivative of. And then he worked with Liam Coen, who is a derivative of Sean McVay's offense. So, all very similar roots here. All 4 of these candidates are very versed in this kind of offense. So the goal here, as you can see from the Bucs, is don't change stuff up too much. They're not trying to reinvent the wheel. They're not trying to go from risk it, no biscuit, old antiquated offense, Byron, to an updated modern offense. They're sticking with a modern offense to go to another modern offense, hopefully with a little bit of a twist, that OC can bring, but one that the guys know and isn't going to be a complete overhaul of install. That helped this Bucs team last. I'll tell you one thing. If the Bucs went from Byron's offense and BA's offense to Cohen's offense this year, no way that's getting off the ground. No way. They would have to make lots of adjustments. They wouldn't have the numbers they would. But from going from Byron's offense and going into Dave's offense, that gave them that kind of year in between the kind of and season to work some things out, right? And then Cohen's offense coming in last year, similar to Dave's offense, obviously different in a lot of ways, but, especially the biggest way is the way they called plays and sequencing and stuff, but very, still a similar style offense. There wasn't a lot. It wasn't hard for players to pick up on what was being taught. And the rookies that they brought in, extremely smart, picked up on it really quickly too. Part of the reason why is because, again, it's an updated modern offense. Lots of people are running derivatives of this, or at least pieces of this around the league, where not many people were running BA's offense anymore. That risk it, no biscuit, downfield tack, throw it, that not a lot of people run it, because if you don't have the players, it's not successful. And we saw that in Tom Brady's final year, and even his second year, when he lost some guys too, in the playoffs and on the way and stuff like that, but especially his third year, when they didn't have Gronkowski, when they didn't have Godwin, when they didn't have AB, all you had was Mike Evans. Well, teams can stop that offense because they'll just take away Mike and try to beat us with everybody else. But that's why that offense in its prime and its peak, even with the Steelers, when they had Hines Ward and Plaxico Burress and Heath Miller and a litany of guys who could run in the slot and not have a lot. So I think Santonio Holmes was there with them at one point or whatever. And obviously you had some really good running backs there. Bettis on the first one. And then I think, was it Willie Parker? I mean, remember Willie Parker? Guy was like a flash in the pan for 5 years, 6 years. But like those are you had loaded offenses. So like you couldn't just you had to play a defense that allowed the offense to kind of pick and choose where they wanted to go, because there were so many guys that could make plays. Same thing with the Colts, Dallas Clark, Reggie Wayne, Marvin Harrison, Edwin James. When they didn't have Edwin James, they had Joseph Adai, different backs in there too, and scat backs and stuff they had. And then when he went to the Cardinals, who was it, Anquan Bolden, the thing that was Jeremy Shockey towards the end of his career too, and Larry Fitz obviously, and then the running back they had, what was his name? I forget. But anyways, I'm going off the rails here. But again, that's what it needs to succeed. These modern offenses don't, and that's why players are having more success and putting up bigger numbers in it and stuff like that. And I think that's why when you look at these OC candidates, they all come from that similar background, similar McVay, Shanahan type, style offense that has a lot of motion, a lot of movement, a lot of window dressing, and does a lot of things that lets the defense show their hand, which gives, when you have a quarterback that can make calls and run the line with the audibles and the cans and certain things that he's looking for and switching into. And that's why this offense becomes so difficult for defenses to defend. And I think that's why when you look at what are these 5 coordinators having passing game coordinators and assistant offense coordinators have in common, they're all from this same system or a branch of it. I mean, that's what's in common here. And I think that's going to be a general theme. I don't think they'll see guys in here that are names that run different systems. And I don't expect this to last long either. I expect them to identify a guy, maybe interview 1 or 2 more. Maybe Thad gets an interview in-house. Maybe Peel gets an interview in-house. Or John Van Dam gets Jean Van Dam. Maybe he gets an interview in-house. And then they move on. They've already, I think with Marcus Brady, he covers the Rooney Rule. If they wanted to make a move somewhere else, I'm not sure if you have to interview 1 or 2 minority candidates or not. And I didn't dive into the background of these guys. One of them could be Spanish. I don't know. Ragoni, is that Italian? That sounds Italian, right? Kaylee definitely sounds white, but Undinsky is definitely white. I'm looking at his picture. He's he needs to hit the sun. I know he's in Minnesota, but we'll see. I think they move on pretty quickly. Some of you guys are in the comments here. Looks like the Delaney likes Nate Shieldhouse would be an amazing choice. He is a play designer for Sean McVay. We talked about that. Jared Cox is in agreement. Chalet House, Gizzard, or Kaylee are the best candidates. Shieldhouse would be the best fit, says Laney. Jared Cox likes Grizzard. Grizzard has experience with McVay through Liam and Shanahan through McDaniels. Right, that's that tree, right? It all branches off from Mike Shanahan to Kyle Shanahan, and him and Kyle and Sean McVay and these guys, they all, figured out what they wanted to kind of, and then branched off. And exactly. Jared says, plus the players have a relationship with him already, talking about Grizzard. A lot more motion with Liam, less zone running. Right. And I think that's going to be a staple for next week. But he said Liam had some nice play design, certainly schemed people open at times and was good at sequencing. But it sounds like it was a combination of Liam, Grizzard, that all working things together. It's always a combination. These guys, as an offensive coordinator, even Dave did it last year. You assign different tasks to different position coaches. So you all have your responsibility, right? Offensive coordinators putting the playbook together. He's in all the rooms. He's in the big room. Your quarterbacks coach is obviously coaching his quarterbacks and so on down the line, but then they also have responsibilities. Grizzard was third down. I believe Thad Lewis was red zone. You have another one. We'll really focus on situational work. Another one we'll look at 2-minute. Another one we'll look at like, I don't know, maybe 2-point conversion, etc. You put that exactly, Jared. Delegate that responsibility to other people. That way, that everyone has a hand in the game plan, and it's really. And Liam mentioned this in his thing, a collaborative experience, and I think that's the best way to do it. First of all, you don't burn yourself out. Second of all, it gives guys different, and when you have a staff that has been together for a while and stuff like that, sometimes they'll swap responsibilities on the year. So that way, if Thad was doing red zone this year, we'll get Thad's doing third down this year. So now Thad has a year of focusing on red zone. He's got a year of focusing on third down. And, with those, it just propels him, looks better on a resume. And it helps him kind of gather the strengths and skills that he needs if he wants to be a head coach or an offensive coordinator one day. I mean, I don't think anyone gets in the league and says, man, I really can't wait to just be an offensive or assistant quarterbacks coach. Everyone wants to kind of run their own show. I'm sure some people don't, and they just enjoy being able to sit back and kind of enjoy the ride. But, I know a lot of these guys do this so they can get experience for their people for when other opportunities pop up. It's something that say, hey, I used to run third downs in 2024. Our third down percentage was this. I ran red zone in 2025, and our red zone percentage was XYZ. These are things that I like to bring to this, blah, blah, blah. So that's going to do it, though, on Liam Coen and the offensive coordinator search. I spent half the show on that. I do want to give a huge shout out to one of our sponsors here at Pirate Parlay Podcast, FanGo Tickets. If you're tired of getting blitzed by big ticketing companies, turn to FanGo for your exclusively locally owned and operated Tampa Bay ticketing partner that offers fans like you full transparency. They prioritize fair pricing, so no hidden fees, so that Tampa fans can enjoy events without unexpected costs. Visit fango.com for unbeatable prices, personalized seat selection, and local partnerships that'll take your game day to the next level. Visit FanGo Tickets, your number one source for live events in Tampa Bay. They are locally owned and operated. They've got a lot of things going on right now. They partnered with a hotel recently. Check it out. Guys, stop going to StubHub or Ticketmaster or even the Game Time and TickPick, which are good apps. Forget all those. FanGo is the place to go. If you're looking for race tickets this season, if you're looking for lightning tickets right now, FanGo is the way to go. They're adding more and more concerts and shows, so those will be available. Fully transparent on their pricing. They show you exactly what they're charging and what they're making off each ticket sale, which isn't a lot. And they've partnered with bars and parking garages and now a hotel where you can book everything all at once and complete your game day experience with reservations at a bar and a combo and offer or something like that. So check it out. FanGo Tickets, make it your priority. All right, let's go into, let's talk about this season. Because I think this season was a success, but with an asterisk. I think this season was a success for the Bucs. You won the NFC South division title again. You made the playoffs again. You improved on your record again. So you're showing this consistent kind of upwards trajectory, right? Obviously, you lose in the wild card game, which sucks. And it's not what you want. But the reason why, especially after you got to the divisional round game, and I think you should have beaten Washington. I really think they should have beaten Washington. Just missed plays, missed opportunities, can't turn the ball over, can't have stupid penalties, and they buried themselves. But I think they still had an opportunity to win that game. And whether it was coaching, whether it was playmaking, whether it was play calling, whatever you want to blame it on, because you're all blaming it on something different. It's Todd Bowles didn't go for it on fourth down. It's who calls the play, the end around, and then it's who Baker's fumbled all year. Well, it's one or the other. The defense didn't do shit. It's one or the other for you guys. Whatever. I still think they could have won, and I think they should have won that game. Where they went after that, who knows? But for me, the asterisk is there. Successful season with the asterisk because, and I know every team faces it, but the Bucs were just decimated with injuries. And I think if they had half the injuries that they had, I mean, remember, you didn't have Clyde Cansey till week 6. You lost Antoine Winfield in week 1 and didn't have him till week 6. You lost Bryce Hall for the year in week 1. You lost Zion McCollum halfway through the game in week 1. It just the secondary. You lost Jordan Whitehead for a couple, then you lost him for the year. Antoine Winfield was out several times after that again. You lost, it seems like almost everybody they lost. Linebackers, KJ Britt was down for a couple. Christian Izien was lost for the season. Zion McCollum missed the game. Jamel Dean missed some games. And that's just the defensive side of the ball. You're not talking about, Tristan Wirfs missing a game, Luke Gedeke missing like 4 games, and still being one of the best right tackles in football. Mike Evans missing 3 games. Chris Godwin, the season-ending injury. Cade Otton missing 3 games. Like, they were banged up. And they still managed to get 10 wins, even if they snuck into the playoffs, whatever, snuck into 10 wins. I think that no injury here or no injury there, and there's a lot different outcomes that come out of this schedule. And we're probably talking about maybe the Bucs still playing, especially if it's the key guys like Godwin and Antoine Winfield Jr., who just never could get right after week 1. Had a nice scoop and score on in his return in week 6, but just can never get right and was banged up. So I think the Bucs had a successful season. That's where I'm at. We'll see if their offseason is successful to set them up. They've got some money. They can open up some money. They got some good draft picks right around pick 19. You got Clyde Cansey 2 years there. There's a lot of good edge rushers in this draft. There's some good cornerbacks where they're going to be picking. There's a couple good inside linebackers if they wanted to reach, some good wide receivers as well. And we'll get into draft topic and we'll get into free agency soon, I promise you. But they're in a good position to really have a successful offseason. And again, they don't really need much on offense. They need to figure out who the left guard is going to be. They're going to draft someone. They're going to let Elijah Klein go in there. They're going to bring Bredesen back. Or they're going to bring another. Are they going to spend money? Maybe get a Tevin Jenkins there and solidify it. But knowing that they have to pay Gedeke next and then Mauk and then Barton, I doubt they spend some money there. So maybe they go with a cheaper option and see if Elijah Klein can battle or a draft pick. And then that's it, really. Number 4 wide receiver, number 5 wide receiver. You really like what you saw from Payne Durham when he had to step up. Devin Culp is intriguing. Keith is still under contract. We'll kind of see. Cade Otton needs an extension. We'll see. I mean, if Chris Godwin doesn't come back now, you're looking at wide receiver a little bit more than you might have. I still think Jalen McMillan can step into that number 2 spot, but you're definitely looking for someone in the draft or maybe free agency. I think you could still look either one of those places, but it wouldn't be early unless you're looking for an Evans replacement. Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State is my pick if they're going to go wide receiver early, but he won't be there in the second round when they pick. So they'll either have to trade up from the second round or move back in the first, gather more capital, whatever they're going to do. But that's out of the question. But again, that just shows you not much on offense. Defense, they need safety help. They need cornerback help. They need inside linebacker. They need edge help. They need interior defensive line depth. They need help all over the place on defense. They got to spend a lot of resources there. So they could, again, if I think they had a successful season last year, could parlay that into a successful offseason and even have a more successful season next year, depending on if they nail the coordinator right, obviously stay healthy and nail the offseason. But they're part of the reason why they're so successful because they had multiple players just step up and lead the way. And I'm working on this article right now. It should be out probably by tomorrow. My Tampa Bay Buccaneers postseason awards. Dust is all settled now. And I think we can look back and kind of without bias and unobjectively kind of look at, say, okay, who is the offensive MVP? Who is the defensive MVP? Who is special teams? Yada, yada, yada down the line. So I am going to tell you who I think are my choices for the postseason superlatives. You let me know who your pick is. Let me know in the comments. If you're watching this afterwards, you listen to this, drop a little comment down underneath. Tell me if I nailed it. Give me your thoughts on offensive player of the year, MVP, all that stuff. So my offensive MVP, I feel like you could have went a couple ways here. Bucky Irvin came out of nowhere. Mike Evans, Tristan Wirfs made the All-Pro, becoming the first time a player has ever made an All-Pro at both right tackle and left tackle. But at the end of the day, Baker Mayfield was just the guy. Like, willed this team to win. Willed this team. Put up best numbers of his season, of his career. 4,500 yards, 41 touchdowns. Yeah, he did have some turnovers. Threw a bunch of interceptions, fumbled the ball like 18 times. Only lost it 3 times though, but still a lot of, and working with a rookie center too, give a little leeway. But he took this team and put on his back at times and wasn't afraid to take the brunt of the heat, even though sometimes it wasn't his fault. He was my preseason pick, he's my midseason pick, and he's my postseason pick. Offensive MVP of the Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield, has to be. Again, I think you can look around and kind of make cases for other guys on the team, but I think it's Baker Mayfield. My defensive MVP this year, again, I think you can make a case for a couple people on here. Certainly Levante David, I think at his age, what he did this year, incredible. I think he was tied for third with Logan Hall in sacks, obviously over 130 tackles. Again, the splash plays aren't there as much, but he's still as solid as they come. Zion McCollum had a really good year. It's kind of trailed off at the end, but really started really hot. But and Kalijah Kancey missed the first 5 games of the season and ended up becoming the team's sack leader. So I think that's another huge win for them as well. But for me, the winner of this was Vita Vea. I mean, Vita was just on another level this year. I mean, nobody wanted to see Vita Vea at all. He shrunk down in the offseason. He trained with Ndam Kasu and his trainer, and Kalijah Kancey is going to be training with him now this offseason. He had 7 sacks. It was just a nightmare against both the run and the pass. Voted to the Pro Bowl. For me, Vita Vea was a defensive MVP of this team. He was just an absolute monster, and it showed every game he played. Nobody wanted a part of him. On my special teams, I had a different choice. I had different choices all throughout the season, and even I'll tell you my choices. So as well for preseason for defensive MVP was Antoine Winfield Jr. Midseason was Vita Vea. It stuck with Vita Vea after the season. He was, again, just dominant. My special teams MVP went through a whole bunch of people. First, it was Bucky Irving. I thought he'd be the primary returner. Maybe bring one to the house. Something that hasn't happened in like 15, 16 years. He did something else that hasn't happened in quite a while, but he didn't bring a kickback. And then it was Tavier Thomas at midseason. He had 2 huge plays, one against the Falcons with a blocked kick, and then he had another blocked punt as well. There's that crazy blocked punt with a duck on the field. He had a few different things happen. He was great. But Chase McLaughlin, just consistent, man. Just the epitome of consistency from far, from short. He remains one of the most underrated signings of Jason Light's tenure. That's how good he's been. They locked him up last year on a 3-year deal, 2-year left. He probably outplayed his contract, but he's gone through like 4 different holders too. That's the thing, right? Jake Kamara started, and then they had Browning in, or they had someone else, I forget, and then Browning, and He's gone through like 3 or 4 different holders this season and still just straight down the middle. He's been an absolute stud for the Buccaneers. Again, one of the signings that certainly has gone under the radar that Jason Liam has made. Rookie of the year. I mean, I had offense and defensive rookie of the year early in the season. My preseason pick was Jalen McMillan. My midseason pick was Bucky Irving, and you guessed it, it's stuck with Bucky Irving. He's just the overall rookie of the year. I thought with Braswell and Tyke Smith, Braswell limited snaps and Tyke Smith, only 2 defensive draft picks that really got time. Tyreek Funderburk as well. It didn't make sense to split up to offensive defense. But if I was going to go defensive rookie of the year, it would be Tyke Smith for the way he played when he was healthy. And Chris Braswell started to come on a little bit towards the end of the season, but I think needs to take a big jump this offseason to really kind of find a spot for him, really, especially as a starter. But Bucky, by far and away, is the pick for offensive rookie of the year. And again, very close. Like, it's tough. Like, Graham Barton was a stud. Like, he had some shaky moments, but he was a stud. And Jalen McMillan, he was banged up, but at the end of the season, like, he's the reason why they won a lot of those games. Like, yeah, Bucky was great, but like Jalen McMillan stepped up and won some of those games for the Bucs, like flat out. But it's Bucky still. It's still Bucky, because he was just so good. And nobody saw it, not even me. Like, I tell you, I did not see Bucky come out of nowhere. I did not see that. This is how much I didn't look at Bucky as a Bucs option, because I figured they have Rashad. They brought Chase back, who's kind of shiftier option. They need someone who can handle some goal line work, right? They need someone who can convert those tough first downs. And I was like, Bucky's this guy's way too small. Like, he's like a scat back type of thing. Like, they don't need one of those. I didn't even do a scouting. I did 170 scouting reports. Bucky wasn't done. I was kicking myself in the butt. I know Tampa Bay Trey was all over him. I should have been on him as well. But when the Bucs selected him, it was like, all right, let's see what this guy can do. Because you look at what he did in college and you're like, okay, at this frame, he's playing in the Pac-12. At this frame, at this build, can he hold up in the NFL? And by God, can he hold up in the NFL? I still have reservations if he can be a true bell cow, getting the ball 25, 30 times a game on the ground at that size. He played through 4 different injuries this season. Like, he just had no quit. Spent his time in the training room and in the film room. Like, that's all he did. He was just phenomenal. His ability to make the first defender miss was just crazy. And continues to be. And I think he's going to take an even bigger step next year. Again, I do have concerns about him being in a full-time role. I don't know if he can be a bell cow, but definitely as a guy in a split committee or even like a 60-40 committee, I think he can be a real dangerous asset, especially if he works on pass blocking this offseason. There, you'll be able to keep him on the field for all 3 downs. Not necessarily, I don't mean like as this workhorse, but like you're on a roll or whatever, you can keep him and know that, hey, we don't have to take him off of pass protection. And then he can get that 2-minute work. He can get that, hurry up offense work because they can rely on him to be a good pass blocker. I think he's going to be a stud. Let's continue down the line. Most improved changed for me. My preseason pick was Cody Mauch. My midseason pick was Cade Otton. And then I found myself back at Cody Mauch. For most improved on offense for the end of the year. I just think Cade, to me, has arrived. He's a top 15 tight end in the league. He can block like nobody's business, and that was a big thing. And I always said, too, like when Cade came out, you can go back and listen to me. I thought he really needed a year in an NFL strength and conditioning program to get himself in a better situation, to be a better blocker. He improved towards the end of the season last year, but this year 3, he took a giant leap, and he was amazing as a blocker in the move, blocker in line, and of course his receiving skills as well. Didn't quite finish to my bold predictions. I said he'd get 50, 505. He got over 50. He got over 500. Only ended up with the year with 4 touchdowns, but Cade was a beast. But Cody was just phenomenal. He struggled early. He'll be the first one to tell you. But he finished this season as the number 4th overall guard in pass block efficiency in the NFL. Number 4. He finished NFC number 1. He had 3 other AFC guys. I'm sure you can probably think Joe Tooney, Landon Dickerson or Trace, like there you can see, but like him for being number 4 in the AFC, not Landon Dickerson, he's NFC, but regardless, he was a dog. He was a dog. He improved in pass blocking, improved in run blocking. I don't think he let up a sack after like week 5. I think he only let up like 5 pressures the rest of the way too. Like he was a dog. And he deserves to be recognized as the most improved on offense. I thought he really came in, and there were some things last year where you're like, all right, year 1, let's see if he can improve year 2. Especially remember, he played left tackle in college. He moved from his rookie year left tackle to right guard, inside on the opposite side. Gedeke couldn't do that. And moved back onto right tackle, and now he's a top 3 right tackle in the NFL. And if you look at the numbers, just the numbers, at least in pass blocking, now Malk's right up there. And Barton was a baller too. Like Barton was a baller too. And I think Jared Cox is having Barton also helped. I definitely agree. Hainsey is a very cerebral player. Doesn't have the anchor. Just there's no anchor. And you look at his engagement pictures and you're like, I got bigger calves than him. He'll still come back, but I think the team will take a chance on him as a starting center or starting guard in the league. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, if Barton takes the jump that Cody made in year 2 and the jump that Luke made in year 2, moving to right tackle, like this offense is freaking scary. This offensive line is scary. They've got playmakers. I mean, guys who can move and playmakers. That's what they are. The offensive linemen are playmakers. When they get outside in front of people and spring a big block, they are making a play that can make a play. Like they're playmakers. That's the kind of offensive lineman the Bucs have in this offense last year. We'll see what it is. But I mean, how many times did you look at the screen on a screen pass or a dump off or something, and you see even in the run game and see one of these blockers barreling down and knocking someone out to spring a big run all the time? Like they're playmakers, and that's the type of offensive lineman the Bucs have. And they're disgusting at it. Most improved on defense. This was one where I switched to. Preseason pick was Yaya Diaby. I thought he was going to come out swinging this year. Did with the pressures, but just couldn't get home. Teams definitely zeroed in on him, knowing that he was the disruptive one on the outside. And again, when the Todd Bowles blitz comes to town, these teams know, hey, they're going to be coming quick. We got to get the ball out quick, which obviously limits the chances they have to get the ball away. So he's going to tell you he could have played better. He didn't play as good. But it's Zion, Jared. You're right. Jared Cox says Zion. Zion had a phenomenal year. And like he did well last year, and a lot of people were scared about Zion this year. And if you listen to my podcast, I told you from the get-go. I told you last year about Gedeke. I told you this year about Zion. He's going to be a stud. He didn't catch as many interceptions, got banged up. He started to tail off a little bit at the end of the season once teams had enough tape on him to kind of know how to beat him. But he's a kid. He's going to come in next year, and I think he's going to be even better. I think they can move forward with him as a true number 1 cornerback on their team. He's fast, he's strong, he's lengthy. He comes down and runs support. When I look at what he had to deal with too, with the safety, and then especially when Tyke Smith, and then you lose Christian Izien, and you got guys who maybe shouldn't be there playing in the slot and that safety, and you're having there's a lot more responsibility on him. And I think that's a big reason for his play drop off in the second half was the amount of people who were back there, and of course, communication. We heard it all year. So important, especially important at the cornerback position. I think that really kind of played into some of his struggles. But I expect him to be a baller next year, and hopefully come down with more interceptions because I made fun of him for it. Also, I had him for 5 interceptions or 6 interceptions, and he let me down. So I love you, Zion. Best free agent pickup started different too. I had Jordan Whitehead at the beginning of the season. Midseason was Ben Bredesen, and it stayed that. I think Ben Bredesen was the best free agent pickup for the Bucs, and it's a shame because Jordan Whitehead was supposed to be. He goes to the Jets. He's better in coverage. He's making plays on the ball. He comes here, and I don't know what it was. It wasn't even Jordan Whitehead from before he left for the Jets. This was a different Jordan Whitehead that wasn't great to watch. Missed a lot of tackles, missed a lot of interceptions. That hard-hitting, thumping safety that we thought we had from when he was back in 2020 and stuff, that was not him. Then he got banged up, and then he got banged up some more. And we'll see if the Bucs even keep him now. He's due $4.5 million this year. None of it's guaranteed. I mentioned that last year when they signed him, they can move on from him if they wanted to. We'll see what happens. We'll see how the draft plays out. They need several. They need a lot of help. They need a lot of help. And free agency, they've got some help there. I think safety is probably a deeper area if you need to get some depth or some guys. But as far as the draft goes, it's not that deep at safety. There's a few guys there. We'll kind of see how this all plays out with Jordan Whitehead, especially because it seems like the accident that he was in that caused him to miss the rest of the season was his fault. But Bredesen was great. He anchored the offensive line. He had some really strong plays and like great blocks that you look at and you're like, wow, that's a great block. He had some penalty trouble, but I think he really played better than his reputation had him as. Remember, he played for the Giants for 4 years and was just moved, or 3 years, and was all over the place with the Giants. He was, center, guard, both positions, all last year, before last year, the season before, where he played for the Giants, for the Bucs picked him up. So having him come in, and obviously playing next to Tristan Wirfs is going to help. Having him come in, next to Graham Barton, that just his athleticism helped. I thought Bredesen was great. I would not be upset if they re-signed him to like a 2-year deal worth like 12 to $16 million, somewhere around there, as a stopgap option. I think that he would fit in well. He's same age as Tristan, if not a year older. Came in the same draft class. It's not like he's a super old head. And obviously he gets along with the guys great. They love him. It's a tight room. He wants to be back. So I'm all for bringing Ben Bredesen back. My final award here that I'm going to give out, and then we'll hop out of here, is going to be Breakout Player of the Year. This one changed for me as well. And I'm interested to see who you guys think. And again, I see you, Jared, in here. Coleman and Whitehead had a rough year. Bredesen, Zion went with AWJ back. Antoine Winfield Jr. will be elite this year. I agree. Logan Hall had a good year. I think we need to draft the safety this year. Izzian is good, but we need depth. Izzian's great because he can play a little bit everywhere. I mean, he played cornerback. They need a free agent. They need something. Bredesen with the rest of that O-line made him play up to their level. Yeah, and I think that was big. But for my drum roll, please, final superlative award, if you call it, is the Breakout Player of the Year. Zion was my early pick, and I think Zion deserves this award. I think Zion was my midseason pick. I think Zion deserves this award because Zion had a breakout year, right? But I think someone else had a breakout year, and I think even though he wasn't named to the Pro Bowl, there are a lot of people that I've talked to that say he should have been there, that say he should have been on that radar. Same thing with the second team All-Pro, and that's right tackle Luke Gedeke. Just phenomenal. Like he's there's always going to be things. No offensive lineman is going to win every play. But I think he took a step up. And Jared says McMillan. He says Cansey. I think McMillan towards the end of the year really broke out and could be a strong number 2, number 3 wide receiver for this team for a decade. Cansey, I think, will be a cornerstone of this defense for a decade. I think he's going to be phenomenal. Obviously, led the team in sacks, missed 5 games, still led the team in sacks. McMillan had 7 touchdowns in 4 games, 5 game span. But I think Gedeke and I think both of those guys, I don't think McMillan has even put himself in the same distinction as some of the best top 2 wide receivers, let alone best top 3 or best top 3, let alone best top 2 wide receivers in the league. And while I think Cansey has made a name, is starting to make a name for himself, I wouldn't put him in the top 10 of defensive tackles in the league right now. Luke Gedeke is in the top 5, and you can argue with a wall because that's how good he was, and that's how good he is, and that's how good he can be. I think he's the top 3. I've got him behind Lane Johnson and Penei Sewell. And for granted, I don't watch every team, but what I've watched from him, then you look at the numbers. whether it's PFF or whatever else site you're using, he was dominant. He had some penalty trouble again. He's going to do that, and there were some losses, but for the most part, man, he was winning, and he was embarrassing people, throwing people out the club. He was very strong for this team. So I think Luke he's mine. Again, multiple cases you can make for Zion, you can make for Cansey, you can make for McMillan, you can make for Bucky. I don't really count rookies as breakout players. I guess you could if they went above and beyond. I guess Tracy was that Tracy Thompson or whatever the guy's name for the Giants, 5th round pick. You could call him a breakout because he wasn't supposed to do anything. But those are my awards. Again, Baker, offensive MVP, Vita, defensive MVP, special teams MVP, Chase McLaughlin, rookie of the year on offense, Bucky Irving. Defense would be Tyke Smith, to default due to Chris Braswell just not existing till the last 2-3 games of the year. Cody Mock, most improved. Zion McCollum, most improved on defense. Best free agent pickup was Ben Bredesen, breakout player of the year. Luke Gedeke. Those are my picks. Argue with yourselves or with the wall, or let me know if you think I'm right or think I'm wrong, and where am I wrong in the comments below once the show's over. Like, subscribe, turn notifications if you haven't done that. Definitely do that. And then we'll save you know what? We'll save this for the next show. We'll do we'll grade the offense, grade the defense, and then we'll do full switch in the offseason mode. Any breaking news, we'll grade the offense, grade the defense. What grade do you give the quarterback? What grade do you give the running back room, etc.? And then we'll jump into the off, because there's so much to talk about this offseason. We have so long to go. Like, let's not beat the dead horse on free agent pickup. Who could they target for free agency for a month and a half until March 13th or whatever it is. Let's live on this season a little bit longer. I know so we're moving on, but I'm not ready to move on. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. You can't make me be. So we'll talk about grades on the next show. And then again, we'll touch on any news that comes around. The Bucs hire an OC. Well, maybe we'll spend the first half of the show on the OC. Who is it? What is it? Why is it? We'll go from there. Any coaching pickups, any future contract deals they sign, any trades or whatever. So you can technically make trades. You just can't execute them until the new league year. But we'll pay attention to anything Bucs, and we'll share it here as always. But before we get out of here, I do want to give a huge thank you to our sponsor. Been with us since the beginning of the season, Mosley Heating and Air. When Florida heat hits hard, trust Mosley Heating and Air to keep you cool and comfortable with over 25 years of experience. Their family-owned business knows what it takes to keep your home's HVAC system running smoothly. Need a repair, a new system, or maintenance plan? They've got you covered. Call Mosley Heating and Air today at 813-230-3742 or visit them online at mosleyheatingandair.com. Mosley Heating and Air, where comfort meets reliability. Check them out. Give them a call if you're in the Tampa area. They do great work. They're also a huge sponsor of my son's football team, which, hey, little news, I'm going to be a coach on there. I'm coaching the trenches. Give me the trenches, the O-line, the D-line. So huge shout out to Mosley. Thank you for sponsoring us at the Pirate Parlay. Thanks for sponsoring our Lutz Chiefs. But yeah, so I'm super excited to be coaching. I'll be coaching with my buddy PJB in the comments there. It's going to be a lot of fun. Definitely excited to that. I'm going to take up my time. I'm going to be a busy man, trying to write, trying to pod, trying to coach, trying to family, trying to work. It is going to be busy, but we're dedicated to give you guys the best content around. So that's what we're going to continue to do here. Before I leave, let me get a Tampa Bay. No, that didn't feel right. Duval. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Again, thank you guys for tuning in so much. Appreciate it. Pirate Parlay, Sick Podcast Network. I'm JC Allen. Follow me at Bucs Game Day. We have so much stuff going on there. Follow me on X at JC Allen NFL. And that's going to do it. So we're out of here. Till next time. Peace out. See you later.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Pirate Parlay on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.